Hello, my fellow patriots. I am Brady Wedham, and this is another feature on tplmedia.ca. What we're doing today is we're sitting down and talking about cannabis and its side effects. So I have a big past with cannabis. I've been researching it for 25 plus years. But realistically, I think there's a lot that's going on in the cannabis world that a lot of people don't really understand. So my guest today is Paul McCucci. We're going to sit down and break down some of the misconceptions of cannabis and some of the, I guess, overlooked things. Like, I think when people think of addiction, they automatically think of drug use being, it's draining your bank accounts, it's making you unhealthy.
Yeah.
But there's way more side effects with cannabis, especially now that it's retail, that we don't really actually talk about enough. So as far as I know, you're not a cannabis user.
No, and I've done it. I've smoked pot. I've enjoyed it when I was younger, but it's not something I really took and started to do frequently, quite frankly. And so it's interesting, Brady. I really didn't pay much attention to it, other than the fact that on every corner a cannabis shop popped up in my neighborhood.
Yeah, especially around 2017, that was everywhere.
Yeah, so so we decided to give these licenses out all over the place. They happened. They're fairly quiet for the most part.
Most of them are now.
Yeah, you don't hear much. People come and go. You don't see many people going and coming, but they do it all day long quietly. So didn't really pay attention to it. And what happened was I got into this project. So, my background, I've done a ton of construction in my life, about $1 billion in construction. I did this charity project.
Okay.
Right. And, I'm not going to bring up names, so I'd rather just keep names out of it. But, it was a soccer field for a community. And I started working on this soccer field and putting it together as a community project. And this gentleman comes and he says, I want to be part of it. I want to help you with it. He's 25. So there's a big age difference between him and I.
Yeah, that's pretty,
yeah, pretty big.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm like, okay, great. So we get working on this field and, very smart guy, did a lot of research, loved the game of soccer, so talking to me about soccer and his favorite things. So you know what? I'm like, great, help me along. We'll get the field, the grass grown, cut. We'll get it lined out, all those good things, get it built, get stands and security for it, everything set up for the community.
So you're making like a full on rink.
Yeah. Well, a field. And we're getting this thing done. And quite frankly, I'm not paying a lot of attention other than we're working alongside each other. And seems like a good guy. So I start kind of doing it after work at night. So at night, as the lights came on and I start working on it, I'm doing it at night. And he starts showing up and he's smoking a joint, right?
Which seems a lot of people do.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, right.
After hours, he's working on a project. Yeah, why not?
Yeah. And as I get to know him, I find out that he's in medical school.
Okay.
Right. So, I'm like, oh, great. Good conversations during the day, very witty.
He's obviously educated on what he's smoking.
Very knowledgeable, right?
Yep.
So then what happens is kind of weird. At night, as I'm working away, he starts showing up, right? And he's a little off center.
Okay.
Right? And I'm thinking, okay, I don't know what's going on. Maybe he's having a bad day. I'm not really thinking much. I keep working away and I keep looking over once in a while and he's standing in the corner of the field looking into the sky.
So
right.
This cannabis is hitting him on a different level.
Yeah. So this happens one day and I kind of say, okay, I'm not gonna. So then the next day, he shows up with a couple beers and, smoking a joint again at night.
So he's just having a time out there.
Yeah, he's having a time. This is his relaxation time, right?
Okay, yeah.
But which I'm okay with. I'm not a prude. Quite frankly, in my business, I can't be a prude. I'm very liberal as far as my views.
And
right?
I think even if it wasn't legal, you probably still wouldn't judge. You don't seem like the type of person.
I don't care.
Judges.
No, I honestly, based on what my lifestyle and everything else, I don't really care. Right? Yeah. Honestly, I'm pretty much
as long as the job gets done and done safely.
Yeah. Whatever. And he's not doing anything that could harm himself, right? But then all of a sudden, like, it's getting to the point where, like, I have to direct him to walk to certain areas of the field. I have to direct him to pick up tools. He's not capable of functioning in an advanced manner to do any job.
So when he shows up before he's ganked out on this cannabis, is he coherent? Like, this isn't just him?
No. When he shows up, Like when he comes over,
He's good.
no,
Oh,
no,
he's already done
no.
by the time he gets there.
My thing is, he's probably, you know, smoked a couple joints, had a couple beers, but you know, I grew up. So let back up for a minute. So
Yeah.
I grew up in a generation of very heavy drinking people. You know, they didn't smoke, a little bit of hash, you know, maybe some weed sometimes, but for the most part, it was drinkers.
It
You
was
know,
the joint usually came out after the buzz.
yeah, but it was an
booze,
afterthought to go to sleep or something. It wasn't really something that people did a lot of. And quite frankly, part of, you know, as I got older, quite frankly, why I quit drinking was because my tolerance was going up and up. And so, you know, I think, you know, we all share experiences of sort of what happens to us over life.
Yeah.
But my tolerance for drinking became more and more, to the point where I was like, I hit COVID. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not enjoying this as much. Quite frankly, my tolerance is getting too high.
Well, and at that point too, you're bored. So now you actually feel the buzz.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, this is not what I like. I like it in a social setting, but at home by myself drinking a 26er whiskey is probably not a great idea.
And the stress through COVID, I've talked about it many times on the show. The stress through COVID is so bad at that point. I'm like, I'm going to cut off because there's so many business issues going on. I have to have a clear head. And so, you know, my story is a little different than a lot, but, and a shout out to Howard Stern on this one. I was actually listening to a Howard Stern show and Joe Namath came on.
Okay.
And, you know, it's funny how you listen to, you know, and Joe Namath, for those of you, you know, famous, you know, football player for the
One of the
Jets.
best of all time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, won a Super Bowl, called it out, called his shot, very flamboyant. And for those of you who remember, he had a very bad alcohol problem.
He was a party boy.
Yeah, lost his job with Monday Night Football because he got super drunk and made a pass at one of the other female broadcasters, and right on TV. It was really bad.
Yep,
and
I remember.
Yeah, you know, he apologized, and it was, you know, he handled it really well after. But he does tell the story, and when he goes on Howard Stern, how he kicked his alcoholism by having a jug of root beer, a liter or gallon of root beer, and ice cream every night. So he replaced the alcohol sugar with the sugar from the ice cream and the pop.
So his body wasn't going through withdrawal.
So
it was just his mind.
And then he slowly, once he got off the alcohol and got onto the ice cream and root beer, he slowly got off of that. So he detoxed himself through sugar, transitioning to insulin. So, and it worked for him, right?
It did, but he's also like, you're trading in cirrhosis for potential diabetes. But I guess whatever.
Yeah, it's whichever one kills you first, right? So in his case, being, you know, his tolerance had gotten so high and he was drinking so much that, you know, he had to do massive amounts of replacement sugar to get off.
Yep.
So I, believe it or not, I did the same thing, not to his extent. I didn't eat a gallon, but I did ginger cookies, right? And quite frankly,
anybody watching, Paul loves ginger cookies. Please mail them to us.
No, not anymore. I'm on a diet right now, but no, I did ginger cookies, right, and diet root beer, but not pop sugar, and it worked for me. So I transitioned off, and to tell you the truth, once I got off, I slowed down the ginger cookies and the sugar, and yeah, I never went back. And so, you know, not that I had a problem with it. We were all functional and moving around, but, you know, I did grow up in an era of pretty functional alcoholics, and I did understand sort of people who had challenges. So, you know, I knew what that looked like. And quite frankly, when he was showing up, I'm thinking to myself, you know, he seems to be struggling a little, but then I'm watching him and he's not functional, which you know, when you deal with functional alcoholics, for the most part, they are functional. So they work, they can move. You tell them to pick up a shovel, you tell them to cut some grass, you tell them to line a field. They can do it, right? Whatever he's doing, he can't do. So he can't seem to function between tasks. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, it's something to do with, and he's smart. He has a medical background.
Well, it's the cannabis.
It's the cannabis.
It is the cannabis.
Yes.
And so with that said, though, he seems to be the average person that shouldn't be using cannabis. And what I did, getting a little bit of pre-show prep, was I put together some stats, not only about how much recreational cannabis is being used nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
but the differences between people that should be using it and some people that shouldn't be using it.
Oh, okay.
So with alcohol, like you're
Yeah.
saying, you see people who are focused and still have the ability to go to work every day.
Yep.
Well, that is with cannabis as well. I
Mhm.
know many people that are using cannabis from the second they wake up to the second they go to sleep, and they're some of the most successful people I know. I also know people that do that same thing and they sit at home all day playing PlayStation.
Right.
So it's not the cannabis that's making the person complacent and lazy. It just happens to be that that person happens to be lazy, and the cannabis doesn't help that. So there's different ways that people are partaking in cannabis. Most people are usually smoking it. It seems to be the thing that's what people are doing.
Yeah, the old-fashioned way.
30% of all sales here in Canada is dried flower. Dried flower is usually turned into a pipe or turned into a joint, right?
Yeah.
So 30% of all sales that are going through cannabis in retail seem to be dry flower. So most people are smoking it. That still does affect a certain person on a certain level, but it also does. We go into things like edibles too, right? People don't really understand what the difference between an edible and smoking is. Edibles are much stronger. A lot of people that even smoke will like to eat a little bit of an edible to kind of keep the buzz going. So what
Mhm.
happens is when you're smoking cannabis, it goes straight to your bloodstream, right? Straight to your brain, straight to your bloodstream. Comes in through the lungs and goes that way. It's
Mhm.
pretty fast, in and out type thing if you're a regular user. With cannabis, while you eat it, what happens is it goes into your liver and gets broken down into a compound called 11-hydroxy-THC. So that comes from enzymes, mainly the CYP2C9. I always screw that up, so that's why I wrote it down.
Yep.
Those enzymes, genetically in the average person, are hyperactive. So when you eat this cannabis, it creates a new hallucinogenic effect that you wouldn't get from smoking. So a lot of people that you're seeing that are going to the emergency room, they're overdosing on cannabis, which is not possible, but it feels like you're overdosing, or the bag of Doritos is eating you as opposed to eating it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's coming from people using cannabis in edible form,
Mhm.
right? So the buzz from the average user of cannabis that's smoking is about 15 to 20 minutes. So let's say your friend's out there and you notice after 20 minutes he likes another one. Well, he's trying to keep that sedative state. He's trying to keep himself
Yeah.
fogged out. If he was to eat an edible, it would probably last 6 to 8 hours as opposed to 15, 20 minutes. So somebody like that who's not functioning on cannabis already is probably better off eating an edible and just calling it a day and not smoking and chasing that buzz all day.
Right.
This gentleman sounds like he's the type of person that technically shouldn't be using cannabis.
Mhm.
Everybody's different. We have an ecocannabinoid system inside of our bodies. It's only affected by a few things on the planet. One of them is cannabis. So the cannabis plant is actually linked to us genetically. And I don't think that means that everybody should be using cannabis, and I don't think that everyone should be medicating with cannabis, but the majority of the average people, I think it is good for them in small doses, probably not smoking, probably not eating.
Right.
There's got to be some sort of way to get it into your system where it's not giving you that THC effect. So THC A through Z, basically THC A and THC all the way to Z are going to be the things that carry the hallucinogenic effects of cannabis. There's lots of people that get medical benefits from CBN, CBD, and all the other compounds that are inside of cannabis. If you can figure out a way to remove the hallucinogen, keep those things, and a gentleman like that who seems to be not the average person smoking, it seems to be that it hits him on a level that is probably not healthy.
Right.
Might be a little bit better if that he's getting benefits from the medical side of the plant to not be taking any THC. And this is a thing that people in the gray market for years before retail cannabis was around, the medical markets and basically the entire system of cannabis itself, it's not meant for everyone.
No, no.
The same way alcohol. Like if I have a drink of alcohol when I was a kid, I
Yep.
never noticed it. If I have a drink of alcohol now, my stomach starts turning.
Right.
Right. So my body doesn't like it. It's not made for it. It doesn't want it. Even though I'm Irish,
Yep.
it's probably in my genes. It doesn't want it. Right. Cannabis is the same thing. There's so many side effects with cannabis, from everything from anxiety. Like there used to be an old tale that don't smoke sativa because it's a mind buzz, smoke indica. Well, I know people that get anxiety from both. It doesn't matter if it's a hybrid, if it's sativa, or if it's indica.
Right.
Which sativa is usually the upper effect, more of a brain buzz. Indica is couch. So when you think of like Netflix ready stuff,
Yeah.
right? That's what indica is. It's going to be a comatose kind of a vibe, right?
Yeah.
One of the things too is that we're seeing with the rise and increase of the percentage of THC, which is the hallucinogenic effect, inside of these plants that are being pushed. The stores want to push 30%. They want to push 31%. The
Mhm.
average cannabis smoker in the 1970s was smoking about a 7% cannabis, right? Even up into the 90s when
Yeah,
rappers made it cool,
when I was a kid.
12, 15%.
Yeah.
The increase is doubled since the 2000s, right? We're now into a zone where we're smoking, and that's just flower.
Right.
We're not talking about the concentrate. When we start breaking down into distillate loops and concentrates and live resins and pressing fresh bud and taking the resin that comes out of that and smoking that, you're now getting into the 90 to 92% THC ratios.
So where did that? So help me out though, and this is where I need to
I
be.
talk very fast.
No,
with
no,
cannabis.
this is where I need to be educated a little. So I grew up in the era with the 12%. Smoke that bud and enjoy yourself, right?
Yep.
Now we legalized it. Now we've got into different forms, right?
Different, stronger strains.
Stronger strains.
Yeah.
Which, where do we kind of cross that? Like, this is the interesting thing, and this is why sometimes it's always that first foot in the door, and then everyone cracks the door open. I get that happens. That's in any business. That's kind of the natural inclination of people in that business.
Yeah.
But so now, okay, you got in the door with 12 or 14 or 16%. Now you're actually selling 90%.
Well, when they got,
Is that right? Like, and that's where I'm struggling because I'm looking at this guy, sorry, and I'm looking at this guy, and then I go to this site because it was bugging me a little because I'm trying to figure out a way, and because I'm still in contact with him, I'm trying to figure out a way to have a lunch with him and just say, hey, you know what, observation, right? Without offending him, to say observation, maybe it's not for you. And whatever your strain, whatever you're smoking, whatever you're getting, maybe it's not working for you. And then I go to this site, Every Brain Matters.
Yes, everybrainmatters.org is actually a great site for people that have personal experiences with cannabis, negative and positive, and a lot of it seems to be young children.
Right.
Stories from parents talking about their young children.
Yeah. And there's Brienne, the one lady, she gets, I think it's an edible, and she overdoses on edibles, and then she goes bananas. She stabs her boyfriend to death. She's in jail.
Mhm.
Another medical professional. She was actually finishing medical school also. We got story after story of these people, and then people who are they won't eat, they won't drink after a while because they've owed, like, so that and you start going through this site and you're like, my goodness, like, and there's technical terms for what's the hermesis
yeah, so the new term for it, the street slang, is scromiting.
Okay.
So basically what they're saying is you're screaming and vomiting. It causes a very violent regurgitation. And a lot of that is coming from either pesticides, not curing the plant right properly. There's a few things that actually jump into that. But when we go back to the actual psychoactive effects,
right,
that is a genetic thing.
Right. It's in you.
It's in you.
It's in you, right? You probably were struggling a little bit with it anyways. You had depression. You were a little off center to begin with, right?
Anything that triggers that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when we're, like we said, when we're eating cannabis, it's a 6-hour to 8-hour buzz, hallucinogenic feelings and properties attached to it. If you're already dealing with psychosis or have that buried deep inside, it's not a good mix. And the earliest adapters of the medical community, the guys in California, Harvard, everyone who kind of just researched this to death, even when it was illegal, they did find out one of the major things is if you have any sort of mental health in your family, you should not be using cannabis. If there's some sort of genetic, if you have chronic depression that's sent down from your grandparents or whatever it is, stay away from cannabis. But you should be staying away from anything that has a psychoactive effect.
But here's the crazy part a little bit. And I think, this gentleman I'm talking about, right? A new culture to Canada, right? Just like my parents were and my grandparents, quite frankly, they didn't talk about depression. I'm sure they did suffer it, right? I'm sure his ancestors suffered whatever, but a lot of communities in my era and before my era, no one admitted depression. Like if
it's a Western baby boomer kid thing.
Yeah, if you were ever bummed out about something, you didn't talk about it, right? You never told anyone. You just weathered through it, right? You kind of got through it. And my mom, everyone else, like they just kind of, I'm sure they had bad days. They just kind of went through it, right?
A term that's negative now, apparently, since culture has changed, but it used to be man up.
Yeah.
Just man up.
So mental health, probably, like, the challenge a little bit that I think people are having is, the history of mental health, and when people say that, they probably don't know. Like,
No.
no one ever admitted it. Oh, wacky Uncle Andy, right? I had a wacky Uncle Andy. I had a wacky Uncle Stewie, right?
Yeah.
On my mom's side, which was Scottish. But
usually all of our fathers said our mother-in-laws were wacky. Their mother-in-laws were wacky, right?
Exactly.
So you can track that a bit, I guess, with the mother-in-law side. But
Yeah.
you're right. No, it wasn't talked about. So there was probably a lot of people out there that have no idea that mental health is running in their family.
So now we unleash. So there's the
Mental health
interesting thing.
issues,
Now we
yeah.
unleash this whole cannabis flurry, which I get, just like alcohol. We had the same. There were people who didn't manage their alcohol well, and became alcoholics. Now we have this whole cannabis flurry. It's all out there. Every corner, they're selling cannabis. The education, I think they're trying to do it in schools, which I think is good. I think the schools are trying to do.
It probably could be done a little bit better.
They could do a little better.
I looked into
right?
what they're teaching the kids with cannabis use, and it's actually not very responsible.
Yeah. Well, and I think, that's when I hit on this site, and I thought to myself, man, like, people should read this story, so then you can kind of figure out, and then if you start doing it and you figure out it's not working for you.
Yep.
Like, this gentleman is a medical profession. Like, he's got to at some point. So either he's trying to numb some pain, or he's trying to figure out what he's doing with it.
I would feel like he's probably seeing, like most guys, even the guys that work for the ambulance.
Yeah.
Like, my God, the stuff that they have to see, the pain that they have to go through, if they have any piece of empathy in them, having to see somebody in a situation that's in pain, that's got to be the worst thing to process.
But then if you start medicating to overcome it,
it's going to cause a huge problem.
It's a spiral effect, right? Yeah. You're not going to do yourself any good. And maybe that's the lunch I was going to have with them, and just say, hey, life's long. Do you really, maybe this isn't for you. Like, maybe this profession isn't for you. I started off, I think I told you, I thought I wanted to be in sports medicine. I went and worked a work term in Northwest Hospital. I couldn't do it.
It's just not.
I worked with stroke victims.
Thing?
Yeah, I worked with stroke victims. I worked on rehab with stroke victims, turning their limbs and trying to get them to, because as they tighten up and they form, you try to, it's all the twisting and turning to try to get them to be more mobile, right?
Yeah.
And it was terrible. I did, 4 months of it, and I was like, I'm done.
And hats off to anybody who can shut that empathetic switch off for the day to go to work, right? Because it's
amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing. And stay and leave your work and go back to a normal life.
And have a wife and a kid or a husband.
If you're gonna do it and medicate yourself through it, then there's no point in doing it, right? You're hurting yourself, and eventually you're going to hurt other people.
Well, when you're saying spiraling out of control too, right? Like, if the cannabis is already hitting this gentleman, and I hate to keep bringing him up like he's not here and we're talking about him, but it does come from a place of concern, right? So I guess it's
a case.
Yeah. If the cannabis is not hitting him properly and he does spiral out of control, like you said, he's 25 years old. Let's say he's doing this for another 25 years. That could lead to psychosis. I don't see any link from cannabis itself specifically causing psychosis. I don't know if the research has been done enough yet. From everything that's been publicated and put out there, it doesn't seem to be the major cause of it. It seems to be the straw that broke the camel's back. That if you are partaking in, let's replace cannabis with kratom for a second, right? Kratom seems to be a super drug, a natural super drug that everybody loves. It causes a lot of problems. Like, there is some severe psychosis issues that come from kratom. I think that everybody is different, right? The cannabis plant itself is extremely powerful. A lot of kooky hippies have always called it the magical plant, the magic plant.
Yeah.
Well, with great power comes great responsibility. If this plant is so strong and is so good for us medically, maybe one of the things that we should do is maybe take a step back from it as human beings, recreational, and start focusing more on the medical side. And I brought an activist in here. We did an interview. It should be out probably by the time anybody's watched this, where we talked about cannabis and we broke it down with saying, in Canada specifically, we always thought when this was legalized and we were on the front lines as activists, putting ourselves out there, willing to get arrested for this, that once this was legalized, things like hemp textiles and things like that, making hemp concrete, all that stuff would come out onto the horizon.
It didn't.
It didn't. We're still using pulp. We're still using, concrete, and we're not using hemp the way that it should be used. We also didn't research this medically the way that we thought. We thought that the doors would be open now. You didn't have to hide behind closed doors. You didn't have to get a grant to research cannabis. Anybody could just go home and become a researcher in cannabis. Nothing has changed. We have not seen anything in 8 years that we didn't already know before legalization. So when it comes to retail, I'll read you some numbers, Paul. Maybe some of these alarm you, maybe they don't. So in August of 2025, there was 498.7 million retail sales in Canada.
Oh yeah,
that was in
huge.
1 month.
It's huge.
It's massive. So a lot of people are using it. We actually broke it down. Seems to be 6% of the country is using cannabis right now in some form.
Yeah.
6% is a high number.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
So I've ran companies as big as 12,000 people.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not going to go into the details of it, but when I actually got the health benefits, you get a summary of the health benefits, you know, your benefit provider provides you.
Yeah.
Right. Did you know more than 50% of the people that worked there were on an antidepressant?
What year was this?
So this is back in the early 90s. So
early 90s?
Early 90s. Early 90s.
What?
So early 90s.
That was
early to
before
mid
Big Pharma
90s.
even invented half of those.
Yeah, early mid 90s. And as we got to 2000, it increased even more, right?
Holy.
So just, I'm sure if you look, so, you know, the interesting part is, go ahead, sir. And
No, now you got me intrigued.
But here's the thing, you know, and they don't tell you that with you know, weed or anything. You know, you shouldn't be mixing you shouldn't be co-mixing your drugs or your, you know, that chemical imbalance in your brain. So I've never asked this gentleman. I'd like to have that conversation at some point if he's willing to disclose it.
I wonder if there is something else.
Have you used, you know, an antidepressant? Have you, you know, thought about it? Now it's interesting because, you know, as I got to, you know, soccer came about and everything happened and I got to meet all his buddies and that, right? I, you know, did meet, they're all little off balance kind of guys. And, you know, most of them are in some type of medical field surrounding what he's doing, you know, and it's very interesting to watch, you know, as they all came and went and drank and did their thing. And I was, you know, interacting with them, but, you know, I also didn't see a lot of, how do I say it? From what female interaction. Like they're all together, you know what I mean? Like they were in and they were all mostly single. They kind of were hanging out. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, they're getting older and they're sort of not, you know, maybe quite frankly, you know, they are having some challenges with everything going on in their life.
And kind of brings me to my next point that I had written down here. Impotence is a real thing with cannabis.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's always been like an unwritten wives' tale or whatever you want to call it, an old fable that said that cannabis makes sex feel better. Maybe it does to the average person.
Okay.
But cannabis has a way of shutting everything down.
Oh, numbing you. So, okay.
Numbing.
Oh,
and
wow.
when you get that numbing sensation, like I know a lot of people that are just casual users, when they smoke cannabis, they get hungry.
Right.
The average user doesn't get hungry.
Oh, okay. Oh.
You don't. It just numbs whatever sensation you have. And then you notice that guys like me, when I'm at home and I've had cannabis and I feel too numb, I counterbalance it with coffee. Coffee and cannabis seems to be a match made in heaven with a lot of users, a lot of average users.
Oh, okay.
So you'll see a balance. You're chasing a balance all day.
Oh, wow.
Right. And like the hardcore cocaine heads back in the 80s, they used to balance it out by saying, if you did too much cocaine, take a shot of whiskey.
Yeah, yeah.
And it'll bring your levels back down. That ended up leading to a whole bunch of different problems and overdoses. But
remember in the 90s? So in the 90s, honestly, in the 90s, if you drank too much, they give you cocaine to straighten you up.
Straighten you out. It's the same thing, but it's the balance, right? And the thing is with cannabis is, and we were talking about this at the beginning of the show, a lot of people back in the day the joint would come out once you already had a couple beers in you.
Yeah.
That would make guys puke.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, right? Alcohol and cannabis do not mix well together. No. And that's why the alcohol companies are having such a strong or hard time here making cannabis spirits. They just don't go well together. There's a few out there. I was at an event last year where there was a wine-infused event where they were debuting this wine, and it tastes like skunky crap. Yeah. So it doesn't taste good. There's no reason for them to be together, and the buzzes don't complement each other. They're both depressants, right? Like they bring you down. You don't want that.
Right.
But so we'll crack down some more numbers. So 2024, 5.39 billion. Ontario was 2.1 billion of that alone. So it seems to be the majority of people that are smoking in Canada happen to be in Ontario.
Great. Good.
Right? You're seeing a lot of that. And there's 3,000 stores that are registered. There's about another 15 to 2,000 that are unregistered, which are considered either gray market or sovereign shops. We get about 5,000 stores in Canada right now.
And why?
Yeah. And the biggest factors of these, the things like increasing the THC up to 30% in flower, increasing the concentrates up to 90%. We're seeing a massive rise reported last year of THC strength leading to anxiety.
Oh, of course.
Anxiety seems to be the number one problem here.
This site, right?
Yeah, paranoia can be caught like that. The anxiety is the tipping point, and everything after that seems to be genetic.
Every Brain Matters is all stories about mothers telling about the impacts on their sons and daughters in jail, their sons and daughters who do these crazy acts all of a sudden out of nowhere.
This is coming from anxiety.
They're running down the street with no clothes on.
Yep.
They're fighting with the police, stabbing them.
Martin Lawrence years ago.
Story after story after story.
Martin Lawrence years ago was on the side of the street naked with a gun and a joint in his hand saying, "They're going to kill me." One of the most successful comedians at the peak of his career was just literally on the, I'm not saying it's the cannabis that did it, but anxiety is a really nasty thing.
Yeah.
And it seems to be somewhat new. Like you're saying, not a lot of people live with depression. Well, I never even heard of anxiety until the mid 90s, 2000s. Like, I was a child actor, and the very first thing that I ever did was Broadway. So I had to do 7 shows a week in front of 5,000 people, right?
Yeah.
So you do that, and when you're a kid and it's overwhelming, one of the things that directors and all these people used to tell us is that there's no such thing as anxiety. It's just adrenaline. There's no such thing as stage fright. It's just adrenaline.
Yeah.
That you wanting to throw up before you go out there.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think we've almost we've confused what anxiety is. Right. So if we automatically think every time our chest is getting tight that we're having a panic attack and having anxiety, you're driving yourself insane.
Yeah.
So if you're one of those people and now you're smoking or you're eating cannabis, yeah, you could be just staring off into the sky while a nice gentleman behind you is trying to make a ice rink for the local community.
Exactly.
Your friend, whoever it is,
Mm-hmm.
confronting someone and telling them they have a problem is never the easiest thing to do.
Right.
Right. And also confronting someone and saying, hey, whatever you enjoy doing in your life, I don't think it's good for you. You may never talk to them again. It could also send them down a nasty spiral, right?
Exactly.
But it does sound like, from what you're telling me, this gentleman probably shouldn't be using cannabis, or maybe take a break from it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
But you know, when you look at this site, right?
Yeah.
You put him aside for a minute. Like, again, it's all these, it seems to be the wrong, when you know, every Brain Matters, it seems to be all these people who are way too young.
Yeah. You shouldn't be using cannabis before you're 25. And the medical research shows that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but it's not. And the cannabis they seem to be getting, which I find it's interesting, the cannabis they're getting their hands on now is worse than the cannabis we had.
Yeah.
Like the chemical, whatever chemicals they're using, which is causing them to
pesticides.
Yeah, to vomit and do all this weird stuff. I'm sure there were stories in my day of it. I just don't remember it. I don't remember everyone telling.
It wasn't frequently as used. There wasn't 5,000 dealers on the side of the street
That's
trying
true.
to sell you cannabis,
Yeah.
too, right? So, like, when you break down cannabis as a whole.
But why are there? Can I ask you something? So here's another question. It's a full other question before we get off it.
Yeah.
Why are there these bootleg cannabis shops now? So the interesting, is this just for minors? Like, this is my curiosity now, because they're probably not getting it at legal cannabis shops.
No, they're not.
Right.
They're not.
So they're
There's
getting
a lot of.
Yeah. There's regulations and everything. I know they have tons of regulations.
All bartenders are really good at like checking ID. They're better than the liquor store for it.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're really good at it. So, like, it's these bootlegs. They're getting it from their local grow. They're growing it at home.
A lot of it is coming out of this is allegedly, as far as I know, a lot of this is coming from some of the legal grows. There's overstock. The government really hasn't. I have a friend who has a shop in Brantford. I'm not going to out him.
Yeah.
They haven't seen bylaw in a year and a half.
Oh, yeah. That doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of shops now, right?
They're not paying attention to the stuff. So when you have a grower who's a licensed grower and out the back door, they're allowed to sell to medical patients, what's saying that 5 of those boxes doesn't fall off the truck?
Right.
There's too much cannabis. The other problem too, Paul, and this is where I disagree with the government when they legalized it. I don't think it was a very smart idea to let everybody grow 4 plants at whatever size they want inside of their docile. Yeah. That means if you've got a 6-plex and you got 15 people living in a place, they're all out of ground with 4 plants. Well, now you're running into drug yielding.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This is too much cannabis. Nobody needs that much cannabis. You can smoke all day long. You're never going to smoke pounds and pounds of weed a month. It's not going to happen.
I went to see a buddy of mine in Oshawa last summer. His whole backyard.
The whole backyard.
His whole backyard. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm like, dude, your neighbors? Oh no,
Nobody cares.
I give it to my neighbors.
Yeah, nobody cares.
It's like, what do you mean you give it to your neighbors?
I remember
go,
the
what
day.
What are you doing? And
I remember the days of being a kid where you had to jump in backyards, hoping to God you could find something, and now it's in everyone's backyard.
No, it's interesting. So I had that was in Oshawa. In Etobicoke, I'm in Etobicoke. I'm building this house, because before COVID, I had like to build houses, and I'm building this house, and every few days, it was really weird. The police would show up to my neighbor's place, this one beside me, the one I was building beside, and knock on the door. The neighbor 2 doors down kept calling the police because his backyard was full. And police didn't do anything. They just told him. They eventually just said to him, they said, you gotta just take, chop it up, use it. You gotta use. We can't keep coming back.
Yeah,
here,
your
right?
neighbors are pissed.
Yeah, your neighbors are pissed, and so he went back and took it out, used it, and then I was like, okay, great, but he did have like a very large, smelly patch.
Yeah.
Growing in his backyard, which
Now think if one of every 3 houses has that, then yes, there's lots of cannabis for the sovereign shops. There's going to be lots of cannabis available for the gray markets, but those guys are using pesticides
to keep it.
Sometimes, well, not so much keep it, but they do it to cure it, and they do it while it's happening so they don't get mites. Mites is a #1 killer of cannabis plants. So it's these little tiny spiders. What they do is they almost are like bed bugs. They're that invasive. They can take out a whole yield, a whole crop. So back before, when you were spending thousands and thousands of dollars trying to hide a room, you could show up one day and the entire room is brown. Right. It could happen overnight.
Yeah. That's why they do it in these almost hermetically sealed rooms. And they build the legal cannabis places out in the farms, right? I've seen them. Yeah.
Yep. And the reason why they do that is because, like I said, they can completely destroy an entire yield. So when you see cheap pesticides used on cannabis, a lot of them are carcinogen. Right, they're carcinogen based, and then your lighter that you're lighting that cannabis with is a benzene based lighter fluid. Mixing them together, and even the OCS had a problem with this in their first year of launching. You have benzene mixed with this pesticide that is causing carcinogen properties inside of your lungs. People are bleeding.
Yeah,
right. They've had the OCS and Canada's federally have cleaned that up, but that doesn't mean that the guys that have been doing it since the 90s with this fish food, crappy process of growing are still not doing it. They're doing it.
Yeah.
And this is where you're seeing actual like lung problems, mold. OCS can be blamed a little bit for that too with the mold. The shelf life on some of the plants are too long.
But Brady, this doesn't sound like something I want to do.
You don't want to do it.
No, but I mean, like the whole thing. This sounds complicated.
It is.
I see why I don't do this, honestly. And maybe I'm busy, and I have to be clear-headed all the time for business. But I can see like this sounds very complicated.
It is extremely complicated, and it's also this is why I wanted to do shows on the network about cannabis, not just because I like it, but the education is not here. It's not being pushed out enough yet.
Yeah.
People think that you can just walk in a store, buy a joint, smoke it, have a little buzz, go home and watch some Netflix and eat a chocolate fudge sundae.
Yeah,
9 times out of 10, you probably can.
Yeah, but the 10th,
but that 10th one,
you might be running down the street with your clothes off.
You might.
Yeah,
you might be like the police officers in the States who busted that illegal dispensary and they ate all the edibles and they found them all in the trees.
Yeah, I remember that.
The cats are chasing me, right? Like, yeah.
Forget it. I don't know your thoughts on edibles. I would never even think about an edible.
The last edible I ate was 1,500 milligrams, which is 1,500 times more than they're legally allowed to sell in the OCS. And I'm not talking about my tolerance. I just really enjoy edibles.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I sleep for 12 hours.
Oh, is that what it does to you?
That just it knocks me out. I only use cannabis now.
But does it knock everyone out?
Oh, no. Everybody's different. And that's what I mean.
Like, so
your body is different and the plant is powerful. So great power comes great responsibility. You need to be responsible for yourself like anything.
But shouldn't there be, okay, so then like what I'm hearing, so this is interesting because it's changing so much differently than when I was a kid.
Yeah. Right.
So shouldn't there be kind of a almost an onboarding program to see where you end up here? Like, isn't there, it
wouldn't be a bad idea.
Say I want to do it, right? Say I want to get into it and I want to, start to partake in it on a weekly basis. shouldn't there be an onboarding program? Like to say, okay, try it at this strength first and make sure you're good. This strength. Like,
Well, that's what the bud tender is supposed to do. When you walk into a cannabis store, let's say it's your first time walking in,
yeah,
and you talk to and not everybody behind the counter is going to be responsible.
exactly.
And this is
right?
why I liked when the gray market was in control, because of the 120 stores that were in Ontario, every single person behind that counter was there taking a risk, and they knew what they were doing, and they weren't there for the money.
Yeah, and they weren't going to.
They were there to educate.
Well, and they also weren't. They didn't want you flipping off your lid and
the store would be shut down tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And having someone sober up and say, "That's where I got it."
I've told many. I had a lady come in.
Was it more responsible before it was responsible?
I had a lady come in that was in 4-stage cancer. She had never tried cannabis ever, and she knew she was on her way out, and she just wanted a little bit of relaxation, so she could eat and sleep while she was going through chemo.
Yeah.
And they wanted edibles. And I'm listening to this guy tell her, you need edibles, you need edibles. And I'm like, do not do this to her. She's already having a bad time laying down.
Yeah.
Right? She can't even eat. And when you get chemo, I don't know if you know anybody that's been on chemo.
Yes.
It's the worst thing ever. Your body feels like it's been exactly what it is, nuked.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So giving someone an edible and telling them, hey, you're going to get a good sleep is not a good idea.
Right.
Right? Education is the number one thing with cannabis, especially as it's constantly changing, it's constantly getting stronger. If you're a cannabis user, you need to be educating yourself. And if you're somebody that is dealing with someone who is trying to become a cannabis user, you need to be the actual point of education for them.
Right.
Well, you can't just send them out.
It seems like all these moms where, God bless them, they're now reporting, unfortunately, after the fact, right? Had these kids, most of them under 20 from what I can see from the site, right? Who started experimenting with it and wigged it, right? They just didn't balance well. They did all these things. So they didn't make it. And
would they have committed anyway? And that's the real question, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think again that
and I'm not defending
the whole psychosis, the whole psychosis piece. But wouldn't it have been nice if, quite frankly, if it's legalized, it's out there now, wouldn't it be great to kind of do an onboarding program? And now it's interesting. So this is an interesting dichotomy between alcohol and weed now, right? So, and marijuana. It really is interesting because now we're telling people not to drink. Right. Yeah. We're saying, hey,
it's bad for you.
Oh, it's awful. Right.
Yeah,
Let's be serious. It is like spirits. My goodness.
They're poison.
Yeah. You might as well it was used for medicine. Right. Mm-hmm. We all know that now.
So was cannabis. Yeah.
Yeah. We get it.
Yeah. So cocaine as well too, Paul.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. But now now we're saying, okay, legalize it. Let's expand it. So we've rapidly expanded on small localized basis across 500, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
So stores that have gone everywhere. But there's really no process to onboard people to say, try it. And if it works, when's your off board and when's your on board? Well, how responsible is that? And quite frankly,
it's not.
Now we've seen the test case for it. Like this site is only one site that's out there. Quite frankly, there's a ton more, but I glommed on it because I started reading the stories, and the stories are well written. The person who put the site together, it
is a very strong site. And if you are trying to educate yourself on, if you have kids that are using cannabis, it is definitely a good place to go check out.
Yeah.
Right. They're trying to understand.
Now,
put yourself in the place of some of these mothers and fathers. Right?
So I have a kid who is on cannabis, right away. I know they have psychological problems, so I got to offboard them.
Yeah.
Right. Because I know that's going to happen. So I got to figure that out. I have a kid who's lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I know, I've been there. So I have a kid who's lazy. Right. Last thing I want him doing is
smoking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
He doesn't have psychosis. He's just not a go-getter, right?
The cannabis doesn't make you not go to work. What it does is it makes you, when you smoke it, you're like, I won't get fired.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not that it's stopping you from going. You're just like, they called it the peace and love drug for a reason, right? People that smoke cannabis and that aren't freaking out from it, that are just enjoying the buzz, usually are pretty easy going.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it's great that they're easy going. But I need them.
They're off of it. They're assholes. But
yeah, the expression. I always told my sons. I said, listen, you got to work hard when you're young. There's no point in waiting till you're old and turning it on. It's not something you're going to turn on at 50, right?
No.
You know,
Yeah.
you're not gonna become a go-getter at some, you know, unless you're Colonel Sanders. Quite frankly, there's very few test cases where people got rich after a certain age, right?
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't
Yeah.
exist. So
Yeah.
it's the training ground. So you got to kind of turn it on earlier. So if you have some kid who's, like you said, playing video games and smoking weed, you know, obviously you didn't get in on the onboarding program. At some point there should have been a check mark that said, oh, we got to get off now, right?
Yeah.
I got to get focused here.
Or even just an
Or I got to do it
education.
only on the weekend
But the onboarding
or only
program
on Saturday.
could be even just the conversation that we're having here, right? And you back it up by paperwork and facts. And if you walk into a cannabis store, there should be an option to say, tell me everything.
Yeah.
Like, do you have a consultant here that I can talk to about this? Because we used to have those. There used to be a desk or a doctor or someone around that you could walk into a great cannabis store. Not all of them had it, but there were a lot of them did. The good ones did.
How about a checklist?
Checklist.
How
would
about
be-
an avatar that asks you a set of 4 questions, and if you I'm not kidding.
No,
In this
I'm
day and
laughing
age,
because
like,
you're right. It's so easy.
let's
to just
have an
slap
AI
something together.
avatar that just comes down and says, hey, but you know, my name's, you know, Gene, and by the way, you know, if you're hearing voices or you're lazy or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm Gene Goodstrain,
yeah,
and I'm here to.
no, but aren't we technologically able to do that now? Like, it seems negligent that we're just kind of going, and like the sites
I
like this
agree.
are popping up, kids are dying, and we're sitting there going, well, you know, it's good for you, and by the way, you know, we started this and it's healthy, and we did it at 12%, but oops, now it's 90%, and now we've concentrated it. We have Delta 8, we have all these things now. We have this black market weed that floats around that's full of pesticides because we let you have 4 plants. I don't know how any of this is good anymore. And now I got this kid in the corner who is one day going to be providing medical advice, but I got to tell him to pick up a shovel. Like, you know what I mean?
That's it. I quit.
No,
I quit.
but there's got to be a balancing act here, right?
No, you're right.
Sorry, I'm frustrated.
No, and
you know, I just don't see I just don't see how this got to this point, right?
And you were justified in your frustrations because even a guy and I'm not on the other side. But even a guy that was in that world for a very long time, I do feel like the government effed up.
Right.
I don't think it was a good idea to have even as simple as smoking on the side of the street. This isn't a cigarette. If some kid walks by and gets a mouthful of this in their lungs, they are now buzzed for the rest of the day and they don't know why.
Have you ever gone to a Raptor game lately?
Yes.
Yeah. Line up with your kid at the Raptor game.
Exactly.
So my youngest one I did last year. I didn't go this year because, quite frankly, we had great seats. Thank you for my buddy who gave us great seats, right? We had great seats. We go to the game. We get there like a half hour early. We're lined up. Everyone in the line is smoking weed.
Yep. Jurassic Park is just a friggin' hot box now.
Yeah.
Before every game. And it has been that way for a couple of years.
And so we sit down and like, he says, this is like my 15-year-old time, he's 16 now. He says to me, he said, let's go get some popcorn.
Of course he did. Because he picked up a secondhand high without even realizing.
Of course, he was a little high. I was a little high. I was a little high. I could feel it. I was buzzing.
There's dangers from secondhand smoke, but they're not like the dangers of secondhand cannabis, right? And if you're standing in line, let's say you got a call and you had to rush to the hospital. Now you got to get in your car and drive to the hospital all ganked out because you're waiting in the line to go to a Raptors game.
For a half hour, inhaling a lot of weed. Like
these
smelling.
rules that the government laid out are horrible. And then they have things like limitations on edibles, which I guess sounds like a great idea, but it's 10 milligrams. The average person can't even get a buzz off of 12 or 10 milligrams. You need about 25 to 50.
Yeah, so they're compounding whatever.
And then now what they've
done
is the shops figured out a loophole. Now they just sell 100 packs of 10s.
Oh, yeah. Makes sense, right? Yeah.
Right. Don't quote me on the 100, but
no.
They're selling these massive boxes, right? And then the other argument with this too is that why is cannabis still so expensive? So cannabis since it's retail has actually dropped about 2 to 5% in sales. So the stronger it's getting, the better the quality it's getting, the price points are coming down. That's great. But you're limited on buying. Your purchase power is limited to 1 ounce or 2 ounces per store, depending on the store. So you're only allowed to get, let's say, $400 worth of cannabis, right?
Yeah.
Some people want to go in there and they want to stock up. They get a big payday. They want to stock up their freezer and not have to worry about buying cannabis again for a year. And they think that that's a problem, that they're not allowed to buy more. Well, idiot, if you went to Costco and bought $5,000 worth of tomato soup, they're not going to chase you home.
Yeah.
But they might because there's cannabis gray markets still. There's still a way to sell this as a drug.
Oh, yeah.
So people will follow you home. There needs to be limits. So things like making a limit on purchasing, great idea. Making it the ability to smoke in public anywhere you want and grow 4 plants, things like that, bad ideas. Do I think that there needs to be a step back on regulation and some readjustments? 100%. I also think that the bills of saying stuff like, they originally told these guys that they had to black out their stores. So if you had a store, that is so dangerous. What happens if somebody's robbing the store? Most stores only have 1 to 2 bud tenders in there to begin with and no security.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be secured by the cameras that the OCS is paying attention to. They don't pay attention to anything. Nobody is secured.
No.
So it's nice to see that they're making changes with that. Pull the stuff off the windows, things like that. You're not allowed to advertise sales. You're not allowed to entice anybody into your building for whatever reason. You can't give them into a draw if they purchase something. So you're limited. You've made really dumb rules for the benefits of making money, and you made really dumb rules for how people consume it. There needs to be a bit of a step back. Somebody needs to come in and make a bit of a change.
And this, this is what got me going on. And,
I'm glad it did, though, because
the live
examples on cannabis.
Yeah. And watching, what I consider a brilliant mind turn into mush by midnight.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, thank you.
And just to close it out, if anyone or anyone that you have in your life, or even you yourself, if you're struggling with any sort of cannabis addiction or cannabis misuse, please get a hold of the Canadian Dry Rehab Services at 1-877-254-3348. The number again is 1-877-254-3348. I've been Brady Wedham. This is TPL Media. Thank you very much, Paul, for sitting in on a topic that I know that you might not be comfortable with, but I'm very, very appreciative that you did. Please download the app or visit tplmedia.ca. Stay safe, my friends.